Welcome to my first vegetable garden. Today's all about growing sweet potatoes. How to grow sweet potato slips. That's the green growth that's going to grow here. You break that off, put it in water, it roots out. Once it's rooted, it goes into your garden. This is a long process. It can take anywhere, if you're lucky, 10 weeks to 16 weeks. I want to show you the quickest way to get them sprouted. I've learned this over the last 15 years. Sweet potatoes love warmth. So when traditionally you start them, in a cup of water, it sits there. Sometimes that water and the temperature stays well below 65 degrees, and it can take a long time for the sweet potato to put out its green growth or the slips. What I found was best was to get a plastic shoebox, something like this, could be a foil container. There's no holes in the bottom, so you want to be careful you don't overwater this. However, it's really hard to do. By using soil, pressing the potato in there, I'm going to show you exactly what to do. It just creates a nice environment for the root system to grow into, the slips to grow, but the key is warmth. You want this to sit somewhere where it's close to 70 degrees in your house if you can, but to really make it work, you want to use a heat mat. That's going to make all the difference. You just set the shoebox or container right on here. This will heat that soil to a good 85 degrees. You're really going to get the slips growing, and that means they will be ready come later spring. Right now I'm doing a lot of seed starting, and if you want to follow my channel, My First Vegetable Garden, I will show you how to start all kinds of seeds indoors and get them outdoors. So you want to keep in mind that your sweet potatoes love the warmth. They like to go out here in Maryland Zone 7. They like to go out into the soil when the soil is a good 60, 70 degrees. The days are in the 70s, and that's usually mid-May here. But it takes a while to grow the slips. Fill your container to about 2/3. You want a lot of soil in there, and maybe something with about 3 inches of depth. You don't have to over worry about that, but the roots will grow from the sweet potatoes into here. This is pre-moistened, and again, if you check out my channel, check out the recent videos over the last 3 in January, and it talks about setting up the starting mix, getting it ready and all that. This is kind of pre-moistened, so it's a dark color. There's some moisture in there, but that's not enough. You want this to be pretty damp actually when you're first starting. So we're going to put in a good amount of water, about 8-10 ounces, and just let the starting mix absorb all of it. Now you don't want it to be like sopping wet like this, but once you mix this through, the peat moss in here will absorb much of that water, and this is good for the first week. And you can see that it's a nice dark color. About once a week you're going to be adding, I don't know, about a cup of water. You just want this to stay a decent dark color. It gets really light when it dries out. You don't want that. That's enough moisture. If you're worried, you can put holes in the bottom and then put this into a foil tray, and then if you overwater, the excess water will drain out. If you've been doing this a while, you can sort of eyeball it like that. So the first sweet potato is from Giant Grocery Store, and it has no name. I don't know the variety, and that's just kind of an experiment that I'm doing. What I like doing is I like going to the organic stores, and this is a Japanese purple sweet potato. They germinate really well. These are the ones that I want to succeed. This guy back here is a little experiment. We'll be talking about that later. And you're just pressing this down to at least half, 2/3 of the sweet potato going in, and it's going to root out that way. Plenty of moisture in there right now. Again, something like that, nice and dark, and you would just kind of water along here, once a week, and that's going to be plenty. So now we want to make sure it has warmth. If it sits somewhere in your house where it's 70+ degrees, they're probably going to move along pretty quickly, but you can really speed it up by weeks by putting this on a heat mat, and that's what I really recommend. A basic heat mat, I will link some to the video. They're not expensive, and they're great for sweet potatoes and also for growing pepper plants. Just want to be clear about the lighting. You don't need grow lights to grow sweet potato slips. Of course I have a setup here, that's why the sweet potatoes are staying under it. But you can see a window right over there. Just set the sweet potatoes close to a window. A south-facing window is best. someplace where you can set up the heat mat if you're going to use that. But the window light, south facing, is perfect for starting the sweet potato slips. Just set the sweet potatoes onto the heat mat. If you have a metal shelving unit or rack, put a piece of cardboard under there. It insulates the mat from the metal, and this way the heat doesn't get pulled away. All the heat is going to go right into the sweet potato starting mix and warm up the sweet potatoes so you get quicker slips. You don't need light in the beginning to really have the slips grow. So this is where I grow stuff, so it's under the grow lights. After the greenery gets growing, you want to put it by a window or something like that. The key though is that if you're trying to start these in a garage where it's below 60 degrees or in the cellar, it's really going to be too cold. Even with leaving the heat mat on 24/7 and you're doing that for 4, 5, 6 weeks, that can be a lot of energy. So I would make sure you start this in your house, by a window, put the heat mat there. That will help it out. The heat mat's going to bring this temperature up to 85 degrees, and that's going to really speed up the slips. And remember, the first part is really what we're doing here today, and I will show you the progress of the sweet potatoes, how I get them into water to root out once the slips are about 3 or 4 inches tall, and then we'll take them out into the garden in May. First step, get the slips growing. This could be a 12 to 16 week process depending on how quickly the variety of sweet potatoes you buy sprout. So you do want to get this started fairly soon. We're starting a little bit early just for the sake of the video and to help teach you how to start the slips. You want to keep the sweet potatoes on the heat mat for several weeks until you have some nice green growth going. You want to leave it on at least 14 to 16 hours. This is hooked up to my lights, and my lights are on a timer, so it's going to get plenty of heat. Once the potatoes are growing the greenery, the slips, you can shut the heat mat off. You don't have to use extra electricity for that, but it's really to get them started, getting the greenery growing, and that will get you off to a great start. In about 2 weeks, I should have some sort of growth on these sweet potatoes. I know that the Japanese purple variety sprouts really quickly. I've done this for a couple of years. Please follow me. I'll show you how these grow, and please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com.